RWBY has always meant a lot to me. While certainly containing more than its fair share of flaws, the first 3 seasons are still very enjoyable to watch. Volume 3 left me on the edge of my seat, chomping at the bit for more. So, when Volume 4 came along and vomited up a rushed, poorly paced, badly written plot, with character development happening off-screen, characters acting stupid to push the plot forward, and was just all around a slog to sit through, I was a bit worried about the future for the show. So, when I went into Volume 5 with lowered expectations, hoping to get something at least halfway decent, well, judging from the title, you can tell how that went. Also, if you're one of those people who are wondering why I'm beating this dead horse, it should be rather obvious. I've reviewed every season so far. Simply skipping one because it's been talked about before is idiotic, especially since I believe I have something to add to the conversation. And if you're one of those idiots that asks what would I do better, know that doing better isn't a prerequisite for critique. So, grab your finest alcohol because the amount of puritanism is about to hit us like the fucking Chernobyl meltdown. Our story begins with our heroes finally arriving in Mistral in all of its 2D glory. Oh well, I mean, I'm sure they'll get to explore the town and not be relegated to the same handful of rooms the entire season. Also, for a brief second, RWBY finally remembers a dropped character trait.
Oh my gosh, look at all the weapons!
Good times. Better than these. Cut to Weiss on her transport when they pick up a distress call, but considering they aren't equipped for the situation, Pilot Min decides not to help. One of the very few intelligent decisions a character makes in this season. The gang reaches Haven and meets up with Leo, who tells them that all the staff and students are gone. Then we cut to Furry Island, and I'm getting the Predator vibes from this tismed editing. Blake and the others confronted the Fox boys off screen about diversity hires Skrull. Obviously, it didn't work out. And speaking of the Squamite, she confronts Blake, who tells her they're going public with the information. Now, why would you tell a terrorist this information is beyond me, but who am I to criticize this outstanding writing? Cut back to Mistral, and Leo tells them about what happened to Mistral after the fall of Beacon.
But since that day, Mistral has been in chaos. Everyone was watching. Every house in every kingdom saw that poor girl ripped to pieces.
Keep this in mind, I'm not done with it yet. So it turns out that the Infinity Stones are locked in vaults that only the not avatars can open. One question, why would Oz do this? I mean, it sounds like a fine idea on paper, but when you apply the tiniest bit of thought to it, it doesn't work. Since Salem apparently knows this, what would happen if one of her followers became a not avatar? Oh wait, that already happened. What if a not avatar decided to run away, like the spring not avatar did and has been missing for a decade? So, while I can understand why you all think it is a good idea, it really isn't. And no one tell me this is the only way. Atlas, being the military and technological superpower, couldn't come up with a security system and a vault that can survive a nuclear war. That way, a jobber bandit tribe wouldn't have the golden key to one of the Zeo crystal shards? Idiots! Oz then magically finds Crow. I'd ask why, but I'm guessing he just checked every bar in Mistral or something. We cut to Yang at a bar, and this is our first real major problem. You see, despite her being broadcast across the world breaking Mercury's leg, which caused a lot of unrest, the bartender doesn't recognize her. In fact, no one does. Now, yes, she was tricked into it with Emerald's semblance, but to the rest of the world, she intentionally injured a beaten opponent. Bakugo then begins to hit on her.
Seriously, not too bulky, not too lean. You're
just right. Yep.
But she shows him the power of a whammon and sends him flying out the bar like a fucking cartoon character, and it looks just stupid. When Yang goes to grab the bottle, her hand starts shaking. So, after yeeting that plotline last season, you bring it back this season. So either you forgot it, or this is just damage control. Either way, it's stupid, and I'm not buying it. You didn't think it was important enough to develop before, so why should I think you're going to now? Spoilers, this goes absolutely fucking nowhere. Yang starts up her bike when Bakugo tells her he can take her to Raven. I question how he heard that given his location and that he was clearly disoriented from being Looney Tuned, but fuck it. Crow comes back drunk and with Oscar, who reveals that he is the new Ozpin. Dear God, this is only the first episode and already we have some glaring logic fails. Again, why would you not task Atlas with building an ungodly thick, durable vault with the best security imaginable buried deep underground where only a select few know about and can access? This not Avatar shit clearly has some major glaring flaws, and Yang not being recognized by the bartender or Bakugo shows a lack of attention to detail and basic continuity. Also, the theme song sucks dick. It's so monotonous and boring with visuals to match. Cut to Weiss as her ship is attacked by Grimm. After fending them off, they crash. Another Whiplash edit later, and we cut to Adam and the White Fang. And boy is this scene fucking garbage.
But the destruction of the Huntsman Academies crosses a line. The loss of the CCT has brought global communication to a crawl, and the White Fang is more of a target now than ever before.
Sienna, you already have a target on your back. You've had one for a long time. You are a violent terrorist organization that actively steals from the dominant military power in the world. That alone makes you public enemy number one along with every other violent act you do. What Adam did was really just the next logical step in your organization. But more importantly, Adam isn't the one who justified humanity's hatred of the Faunus. You did, you fucking moron, by turning an organization revolving around non-violent advocacy into a racial identitarian terrorist organization, you cabbage-fried cunt. And Adam is just fine now with human help. I mean, it's not like he was forced into it under threat of death after refusing the first time.
You're asking my men to die for your cause. A human cause. That is not an idea I am willing to entertain.
It's almost like Adam is a completely different character in that episode, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Adam apparently gained a following so strong that they are willing to overthrow Sienna, and all of it happened off screen. Because why bother showing Adam being anything other than a mustache-twirling villain? Imagine the intrigue of an internal power struggle within the White Fang, showing Adam as a cunning and charismatic leader as he gets people onto his side. You could build an entire season around it, but that requires effort, so fuck it, Adam just kills Sienna, who could have really helped give Adam more depth. And why bother hiring Monica Rial for what is essentially a nothing role when that money could have gone to your animators? Weiss is then captured by Raven, and yes, they are going to be this contrived and stupid. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Jira holds an assembly and gives the people of Furry Island the information gathered from Diversity Hire's scroll. Adam is going to attack Haven in 2 months. And we're gonna remember that time frame. Diversity Hire, the spy, then decides to make herself known. Why? First off, the whole point of being a spy requires discretion and staying under the radar. Way to fuck up your position even more than you already have. Second, you open yourself up to being caught. Granted, you don't really seem to care since you pulled out your scroll in the middle of a chase like a dumbass, but Christ, is it too hard for characters to act logically? Third, why is everyone letting her talk? Why didn't Sun just jump her the instant she made herself known? Now, one could answer the first question by saying Diversity Hire is a sycophant of Adam. Oh god, you have no idea how wrong you are. This scene also demonstrates why this entire racism angle is fucking moronic. Diversity Hire tells us that humans did some really fucking terrible things in the past, like hunting Faunus. However, to date, there hasn't been anything close to this level of racism in the show. The worst it's ever gotten are some hicks shooting at Jira and company if we're counting media outside the show, which, given how 2 seasons are devoted to this, I shouldn't have to watch external material to understand the basic fundamental aspect of your world. In the show proper, the worst it gets is a few signs and Cardin bullying Velvet. That's it. If racism is so bad in this world that hunting funnest for sport is apparently a thing or was a thing, then why is it that people in this world generally treat faunists like equals? Show don't tell exists for a reason after all, especially if what we see contradicts or is not as severe as what we're told. A very good example is Diversity Hire's own backstory. In this scene, she says that dust companies treat their faunist workers like slaves, but her parents earned enough to send her to a private school. Now, here in the US, at least 1 year of private school can cost upwards of $14,000 a year. Not only were your parents making enough to pay that kind of money, but they were also able to make enough to at least just get by on their own. That's hardly being treated like a slave. Being treated like a slave would be getting below minimum wage for a mining job, but clearly that isn't the case. Are you beginning to see why so many people grew tired of this retarded plot? Also, son, you could have caught her if you didn't give away your position. Otherwise, why bother trying to sneak up on her? I love you, man, but not your finest moments. Going back to Mistral, we could see that Oz can take control of Oscar's body. This is because Oz was cursed by the gods to live in an endless cycle of reincarnation because he failed to stop Salem in the past. That is a fairly solid explanation filled with some great story potential that I'm positive won't be retconned into something moronic. Cut to Weiss being held captive in the bandit tribe's camp in a wooden cage. Why a wooden cage? You'd think that a tribe of bandits would have something more compact and durable, especially given what Weiss can do with her semblance since it was broadcast around the whole world. The world building really is fucked now, isn't it? Weiss is confronted by a horrible voice actor, and she tells her that they're going to ransom her. Weiss then points out that her special operative sister would find her, however, she's not in Mistral anymore. And that matters why exactly? Like, you're telling them where you are and your goons, as we'll later see, are plebs, so what makes you think that Winter won't hunt you down if you ransom Weiss? She has the resources of an entire military, and even if James recalled the military and shut the borders down, what makes you think he'll let anyone out to save one person? Didn't think this through, now did you? And if you say I'm overthinking it, then maybe the writers should actually think about the things that they write. And because this season was edited by a spider high on meth, we cut back to the Haven crew that I'll be calling the Moronics from now on. And they all decide on a few things. Crow will use his contacts to gather up some hunters so they'll have some real muscle. Makes sense. The thing that doesn't make sense is training the kids. Ruby will work on her hand-to-hand and Jean on unlocking his semblance. A few problems here. First, what are Ren and Nora going to work on? Nothing, I guess, since they don't improve at all. Second, you're telling me that after all the time in both Signal and Beacon, Ruby never learned the basics of hand-to-hand combat in a combat school. That's like taking a biology class and not being taught the basics of evolutionary theory. Third, wouldn't it be more efficient to make her a secondary weapon? After all, you have the resources of an entire school, or if you can't do that, just go out and buy the materials and build it yourself. Fourth, given that Ruby can do this with her semblance, would make giving her a rushed hand-to-hand lesson in only a month pointless since her running could fuck someone up. And finally, the whole reason why this is even being brought up makes no sense. Ruby didn't bring her weapon to the arena because she would have no reason to. She had no idea that Mercury would for some reason show up and attack her. So to conclude, Ruby should already have hand-to-hand training. A sidearm would make more sense than a rushed training regiment. Her semblance should make it hard for people to even hit her, and the foundation for all of this is completely retarded. Bakugo finally leads Yang to Raven's tribe, and it goes about as well as you'd expect after he tries to outnumber her. Also, these bandits have shittier weapons than the Raiders in Fallout. Back with the Moronics, and Ruby is training with Oscar. Did you enjoy it? Well, that's the last time we'll ever see it. So glad we wasted our time on it. Back with Yang as she finally confronts her mother. After years of searching and thousands in property damage, Yang has finally found what she's been looking for, and Raven is willing to answer any and all of her questions. So now, she can finally get the answers she's been seeking all this time.
I'm not here for you.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm not here for you.
This has been one of your main motivations, if not your main motivation since the fucking Yellow trailer, and now, for some reason it isn't. After years of searching, your own words, mind you.
I spent years looking for you.
A search that almost got you and your sister killed, and you've made the decision off screen that you don't want answers anymore. In what alternate reality does this even begin to make sense? Yang has yeeted her main motivation for what? The PTSD plotline? Yeah, real bang up job you've done there. And spoilers, barely anything is done with it. Basically what we have here are the writers throwing away a vast well of story potential for no reason other than a botched attempt at PTSD. So basically Yang is left with nothing of substance to work with, effectively making her a nothing character. And before anyone points out this scene in Volume 4...
I know how much you want to see her. I've stopped you in the past, and I won't anymore. And we both read the note. We know your sister is headed to Mistral. Where are you going?
That doesn't explain why she decided to give up on answers. It only poses a question that Yang would have to answer, and she did it off screen. This is flaming hot garbage if I've ever seen it. Yang basically wants Raven to teleport her to RWBY since her semblance can open up portals to people she has a connection to. And she gets angry when Raven tells her to GTFO. Bitch, you walked up to her porch and took a shit on it after she invited you in for tea. I get you want to help your sister, but this makes you look like a bit of a psychopath. After Yang decks a goon that attacked her, he hits a tent that was blocking... Weiss? Wait, Weiss was kidnapped at sunset. It's sunset now. How long was Yang riding with Bakugo anyway? Was Weiss captured a day before? She spent at least one night with them. In fact, how long did it take for the goons to escort Yang to camp since it was the middle of the day when she beat them up, and then it was sunset when she arrived? The season takes place in a quantum vacuum where time becomes a distorted mess. Weiss makes her summon grow, and I have to ask, why not do this earlier? I know doing it during the day would be stupid, but wait until night, when most of them are asleep, break out and ride on your summon while giving it a boost with time dilation. Or if for some reason she can't do that, then use the Tiny Knight to pick the lock, and take off while giving yourself a boost with time dilation.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
Oh, right. I forgot. Before a huge throwdown can begin, a bolt of lightning crashes down in front of them as it turns out that the horrible voice actor is a not Avatar. Raven, clearly fed up with Yang's temper tantrum, invites both of them into her tent where she can tell them the truth. Ha! You don't know how funny that is yet, but that's next season. Sun and Blake try to get the people of Furry Island on their side, but no one seems to really want to get involved.
Because not everyone is like you and me. The faunus here in Menagerie, the ones that weren't born on the island, moved here because they were tired of fighting.
Then maybe you should have worked on your sales pitch. I know, it's not really even a nitpick, but it bugs me. It makes the past 2 minutes feel like a waste of time. Like, why bother showing us this when you could have just skipped all of it and cut to Sun slamming his drink on the table? Again, not really a flaw, just a small personal annoyance. They then start talking about Adam, and boy is it like Captain Marvel all over again.
He was spite, not hatred, not rage, spite. He won't accept equality, only suffering for what he feels the world did to him.
Granted, there's actual basis for this because unlike Carol, Adam actually has a personality, but it's still a piece of hack writing. This is very much like the racism angle. It's all tell and no show. Instead of this being a segue to a flashback where we get to see Adam and Blake's relationship so we can get a better understanding of it, Blake just regurgitates exposition onto the screen. Show, don't tell exists for a reason after all. Back with the Moronics, Oscar is doing some solo training when RWBY walks in to tell him dinner is almost ready. RWBY then references Penny.
But at this pace, you'll be combat ready in no time.
This is odd since RWBY hasn't mentioned Penny at all, nor has shown that her death has any kind of effect on her. Oscar then cracks a bit and asks RWBY why she keeps fighting. And what proceeds is one of the gayest speeches I've ever suffered through.
I lost two of my friends, Penny Polendina and Pira Nikos. I didn't know them for very long, but that doesn't change the fact that they were two of the most kind-hearted people I'd ever met. Penny was killed. Pyrrha, Penny, I'd be lying if I said that it didn't hurt, no matter how dangerous it was. So that's what I choose to do. To keep moving forward.
Sweet tap dancing Azathoth, where to even start? First off, this is the first time RWBY has ever shown any kind of sadness or has been affected by Penny's or Pyrrha's deaths. Nothing about how she conducts herself or makes decisions has changed. She has no survivor's guilt, doubt in her abilities, no obsession with vengeance or justice. She is just the same character she's been since the first episode. Second, this is once again lazy hack writing because she has to tell the audience their deaths had a long-term effect on her rather than taking the time to show us they affected her. It's a lot easier if somebody shows you step by step how to change the brakes on your car and point out what parts need to be changed out than just simply telling you how to do it before you go and do it. And finally, it doesn't really matter since RWBY is never affected by it again. This was just tacked on so that the writers could say they acknowledged it without actually doing something with it. But please, continue telling me how I'm wrong and that this show is actually well written. Cut to the precious Foxboys as a varsity hire walks in, and I have to ask, why isn't she being punished? I thought letting valuable information slip out of your hands would constitute a scolding at least. Now, maybe they don't know she lost a scroll like a dumbass, but apparently she didn't set up a password for it, despite knowing there's very sensitive information on it. So not only did she let the plan slip, but she didn't even bother to do something that phones in the real world are capable of doing. In fact, they're treating it like it never even happened. What kind of organization, terrorist or otherwise, would just seemingly forget about something this big?
It's my fault the Belladonnas had any ground to stand on.
Oh, so you do know! Not like it fucking matters anyway. They're still going through with the plan despite acknowledging the Belladonnas as a threat.
But your relationship with their daughter makes you an integral part of this operation.
No, it makes her a liability, you retard! Why is everyone a brain-dead troglodyte in this show now?
The Belladonna name has brought me nothing but grief.
Ha! You have no idea how funny that line is now thanks to Volume 6. And boy do I have a rant saved up for that tismed fuckery. That's next season. We still have to finish this piece of shit. Crow goes looking for all his old contacts and friends and finds that all of them are dead. How inconvenient. While this does open up some decent potential for Crow's character, seeing how so many people he knew are now dead, I can't wait for nothing to be done with it. Back with Yang, and Raven reveals that she and Crow decided to be hunters to kill hunters, but Crow found a greater purpose in life. That sounds like a much more interesting story than this anal discharge, but unfortunately we're stuck with it. Raven gives them what we already know about Salem, but Yang snaps when she calls Crow and Tai fools. But then we get this line, and this is what gets to me about this scene.
You were never there! You left us! Why?
I know more than you realize.
Actually kind of funny. The writers are just giving a middle finger to anyone who even gave a shit about this entire confrontation. They retconned the fuck out of the Volume 2 stinger for this. What answers were you wanting about Raven leaving? Well, fuck you. Thanks for wasting our time, you cabbage-fried donkeys. So Raven shows them that she can turn into a bird, and they treat it like it's the fucking God Hand being summoned. I guess there are no shape-shifting semblances in Remnant, but what really gets to me is when Weiss says this.
It was crazy. We have dust, semblances, but, I mean, there's no such thing as magic.
Bitch, you can summon a night and control time. Magic is low on the totem pole of believability in this universe. Anyways, Raven opens up a portal but gives Yang a choice to stay here and have all her questions answered. Perhaps we'll see that Raven isn't as bad of a parent as Yang and the audience thinks. But that would require effort from these writers, so Yang says, fuck you, and rides into the portal with Weiss. It amazes me how they set up 3 different opportunities to get some answers to why Raven did the thing she did, only for the show to do literally nothing with it. Yang finally reunites with RWBY, and she's instantly forgiven for leaving. Keep this in mind, I'm not done with it yet. It's a big emotional moment made idiotic because it took a massive contrivance and the destruction of character motivation to get here. I will admit though, I enjoyed the dinner scene immensely. It's the first time the moronics actually feel like characters rather than hollow vehicles to move the plot forward this entire season. And just for a brief moment, I have the slight nostalgic rush of better, more competent times. Unfortunately, it all comes crashing down to reality when Ren begins explaining everyone's character development. Yang and Weiss get caught up in the situation, but for some reason, when Oz tells everyone he gave Crow and Raven the ability to turn into birds, they don't believe him. RWBY can shit out rose petals from nothing. How is turning into birds somehow unbelievable? Then Yang treats it like Oz raped her boyfriend in front of her. There are no negatives to them turning into birds. They can travel long distances in a short amount of time. You have done worse things than this, Yang. Or does physical assault and property damage not count as long as the person in question is a bit shady? You fucking hypocritical twat beard. But the Yang bitch train doesn't stop there. She's still pissed that Blake left, but she forgave RWBY instantly. I'd imagine your sister that you've loved for years leaving would hurt more than some frumpy Felid you only knew for a couple of months. But I'll have more to say on that later. Back with Blake, and Diversity Hire left a note for her taped to the balcony railing. That seems like a really dumb spot to tape it. What if she was on the other side or didn't even come out on the balcony that night? Not the smartest squammate, that's for sure. Then back with Yang, and my neck hurts from how horrible this pacing and editing is. Weiss comes into the room, and Yang says something so idiotic, so devoid of logic, that I'm sure that Ryan Johnson wrote it.
My mom left me. RWBY's mom left too.
So, Yang considers the woman who left before Yang could even form basic memories of her mom, but not the woman who raised her like her own daughter. So this line in Volume 2 doesn't mean anything anymore.
And she was like, super mom. Baker of cookies and slayer of giant monsters.
You didn't even know Summer wasn't your biological mother until your dad told you. Summer was your mom, you celestial dumbass, not just RWBY's mom. To add more onto Yang being an ungrateful, sniveling bitch, she decides to make everything about her.
I had to pick up the pieces. I had to keep things together.
No, it wasn't your dad busting his ass to support 2 kids while dealing with the emotional baggage of losing 2 wives, while also putting food on the table and a roof over your head. It was you who kept things together, right? A little girl not even in the 3rd grade yet. Forgive me if I have zero sympathy for an ungrateful, hypocritical, self-absorbed yellow skid mark. Weiss then slaps the shit out of Yang, showing that not only was her life worse, but that Blake has her own reasons for leaving.
When I was 10, my dad finally admitted to my mom that the only reason he married her was for the family name. It was actually on my birthday. The entire time Blake was at Beacon, she was afraid to open up to people. She tried to keep her past separated from us. The one thing she was afraid of actually happened.
Unfortunately, this only emphasizes Yang's hypocrisy. She's pissed at Blake for having understandable reasons for leaving, as horribly executed and self-absorbed as they may be. She's pissed at Raven, a woman she has no emotional connection to or memories of, for leaving, but forgives RWBY, who she has known the longest out of her team, and has the most emotional connections to, and whose reasons for leaving are fucking idiotic. She gets instantly forgiven. There's no animosity, no anger, no feeling of betrayal. What makes RWBY so super spectacular awesome that she gets off the hook? Blake goes to see Diversity Hire and is ambushed. And it turns out that she wanted that Bella booty too. I wonder if that will be the reason why she eventually turns good in the end. Because shipping is the only way for characters to develop in this show anymore. However, in a surprising display of intelligence, Blake brought Sun along just in case this thing might happen. Unironically, I was stunned to see any character at this point in the show act in any intelligent way. But Blake breaking out of that much spider silk would require her being from fucking Krypton, considering spider silk has immense proportional tensile strength. I'll let you guys decide why I brought that up. Diversity Hire and her crew are attacking Blake's house, and for once I feel like rooting for the heroes to win since it's Kali and Jira who are in danger, two of the best and most likable characters in the show. The Fox Boys then show up and Jira activates man mode. Cinder confronts Raven and immediately Raven puts all of them on roast.
2 children you've tricked into following you, a disgraced Atlesian scientist, and a fall maiden with a surname so appropriate she probably picked it herself.
Despite being poorly written, I'm really starting to like Raven. Cinder asks the horrible voice actor to prove she's a not Avatar. Now, I will give some credit here with Raven wearing the mask and horrible voice actor closing her eyes when she does the not Avatar thing, but that's not until later.
In 2 days, Haven Academy will be destroyed by the White Fang.
I'm sorry, what? It's already been 2 months? Fucking Christ, this pacing is terrible. The Moronics never left the damn house on screen. Was the budget so low that you assholes couldn't give us more than 3 locations? Raven offers to go to Haven with them so she can kill Crow. Cinder agrees, but Arthur, being one of the few characters with an actual brain, objects to this because rather than get in, get the left eye of the world and get out, Cinder is agreeing to a needless fight that isn't worth the risk, seeing how they have no guarantee of winning. That, and Arthur points out it would put the White Fang's attack in jeopardy and attract the authorities. But because Cinder is a brainless, witless goldfish of a person, she agrees because her hate boner tells her to. Now, Cinder does say that going on the day of the White Fang attack would cover it up, but you make your job even harder. What if they just blow it up anyway? They're radical terrorists that don't give a shit about human lives. You really think they're going to care if you're in the building and get killed? You dumbass. Unless you didn't even fucking tell them you're gonna be there, which you're just even stupider than humanly possible. Meanwhile, Jira is owning fools like no one's business, like the boss he is, when Sun and Blake join the fight. Unfortunately, we cut away from Sun and Jira kicking ass to Raven sitting on her bed. I don't get why Rooster Teeth feels the need to cut corners, not like they pay their animators anyway. Raven tells horrible voice actor that they'll take the Sith dagger for themselves. This will only put a target on your back and do the one thing you've made clear you don't want to happen, but consistency is subjective. Back to Kali kicking ass and showing why she's best girl, but sadly we have to cut to Diversity Hire and Blake, 2 of the worst people on the planet. They start fighting and it's really, really lame. You know, I get that a show can't exist on fights alone, but goddamn has the quality tanked. We used to get some great action sequences and set pieces. Now we get boring ass shit like this. Which wouldn't be so bad if the writing wasn't complete dog shit. Case in point, Blake has forgotten she can Getsuga Tensho, which would be very useful here. This isn't even a Volume 5 problem. She hasn't had this since the end of Volume 2. Diversity Hire turns off the lights and camos herself, which on paper is smart. However, she starts talking and Blake apparently can't determine what direction she's in, and since there's no echo, there's no reason to not know where she is, especially since she has cat ears, which are better than human ears, unless they're vestigial because faunus don't make sense. Then Blake sets her house on fire to light up the room. Why? You have night vision, you twat. Use it to find the light switch and turn them back on. Or maybe the muzzle flash of your gun. Not like Diversity Hire is really all that great at camping. Fucking hell, you're on a hardwood floor. How did you not hear her footsteps? It's all so terrible. Blake begins giving Diversity Hire a really gay speech about how she's such a good person, and I call bullshit. Literally everything we've seen of her is that of a sycophantic psychopath that's trying to kill your family and is aiding with the deaths of countless people. You can try to shove as much dialogue telling us she's a good person, but her actions and literally everything that we have seen up until this point tells us she's not. She's just a shallow replacement for Adam that is also the token gay of the season. No more, no less. Jira pops in and we get a reference to MHA. Thanks for reminding me of better shows I could be watching. But I will give this tumor of nonsense 1 point for having Sun slap the shit out of Diversity Hire. Never change, you absolute Chad. Unfortunately, Jira saves Diversity Hire from being crushed, and instead one of the Fox Boys is crushed. The last fox boy tries to attack them, but Diversity Hire makes a face turn. Huzzah! I'm sure her reasons for going against years of indoctrination and sycophantic beliefs in a few minutes won't be shallow at all. With the day one, Blake decides to give a speech.
Humans didn't do this. We did this. Faunus.
No, Blake. A terrorist organization known for its violence did this. None of these people did anything. And yes, I understand she's trying to say that Faunus can do terrible things too, but the delivery is beyond fumbled. She's lumping all Faunus together into one big monolith, trying to put the blame on an entire race for the actions of a select few. It's not their fault a bunch of extremists tried to kill your family, but I get it. The whole when good men do nothing thing. However, Blake is missing one important detail.
This is the message Adam Taurus will bring to the world if no one stops him.
That's already happened, you retard. The reputation of the Faunus was basically destroyed at the fall of Beacon. Sure, swooping in to save the day will help, but you have a long way to go. Did anyone bother to rewatch the series before writing this trash? Blake says she's going to Haven, and Diversity Hire says she'll go with her. Naturally, she's a criminal, so the guards want to take her in. But Blake says no, and the harshest consequence she gets is Sun pinching her. Let me repeat, a pinch from Sun is all this absolute waste of carbon gets for breaking and entering, treason, attempted murder, destruction of property, aiding and abetting, along with many other crimes that come with being a part of furry ISIS. Can't say I'm too surprised, though, since the bumblefuck duo have yet to face any of the consequences for their crimes. And the funniest part, Blake forgives her. She tried to kill your parents, you intergalactic hagfish. I can believe that this world has furries, impossible weapons, magic, and androids, but being instantly forgiven for trying to murder your parents? That is unrealistic. That is unbelievable. Getting very close to Ray Palpatine levels of insufferable, Blake.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
The Moronics arrive at the school, but Yang spots Raven, who's just sitting there in the open like some kind of confused grandma. Crow shoots at her and she changes back to human, and then Ruby gives the second most cringe-inducing gay speech I've ever heard.
We had people to teach us. People to help us. We had each other. Work with us. At least I know we'll have a better chance if we try together.
Shut up! Make him stop! Make him stop! Shut up! Shut up!
A bunch of regurgitated shonen protagonist verbal diarrhea. Then Ruby gets hit with a fireball and it makes me laugh. Cinder and her crew walk out of the portal while Hazel locks the door from behind and the White Fang begin planting explosives. After some villain nonsense from Cinder, Jean then has a burst of rage. Now, on paper, this makes sense. However, in execution, it's fucking idiotic. Jean has shown very little of his angst and resentment towards her at this point in the show. You can count the moments on one hand in which Pyrrha's death actually affects him. Granted, it's far more than Ruby, but it's still piss poor. Like with Ruby, it doesn't affect his views on the world or his decisions or really anything up until now. In the first episode of last season, Ruby makes fun of Jean for having a Pumpkin Pete hoodie, and instead of giving a hollow smile or even a brief glare, it's played as a straight joke with Jean making a pouty face. It's like they forgot Pyrrha was the model for the Pumpkin Pete cereal. And for those who want to cover this up by saying, "He was just putting on a brave face, you need to read between the lines," please remember, in order to read between the lines, there needs to be something there. Not once do we ever see some cracks in the facade, no butting heads with his team if a quicker and but more dangerous option to get to their goal appeared. None of his team ever tries to ask him if he's even doing well. So while this moment makes sense, it has very little impact since Pyrrha's death has meant largely nothing. I also want you to pay attention to the backgrounds as I go through this clusterfuck. They change constantly even if the characters don't move. It's just the purest of garbage. And so begins what is quite possibly the worst put together fight I've ever seen. And I mean it, this has some of the worst character choices I've seen in a fight. The lack of anything resembling logic should be studied. Case in point, Weiss's obsessive need to summon despite having a multitude of broken abilities like controlling time. It's to the point where horrible voice actor breaks her aura when she stops while being wide open like some kind of lemming and begins to summon, or how characters will just stop fighting and look off to the side at other characters. But perhaps the ultimate example of tismery is when RWBY, instead of using her super speed to do something like this, her eyes activates. She gets knocked out, and Jean, instead of using his sword obviously designed for slashing, decides to thrust with it. And no one tell me that he's so blinded by rage that it makes sense that he wouldn't use it that way. When you're going full guts on someone, chances are you're going to be using huge baseball swings, not precise thrusts. Plus, there's a difference between being overcome with a burning anger and just being a dumbass. But it's not over yet. No, we have yet to get to the stupidest part. So Cinder decides to be evil and kill someone to torture Jean. And instead of choosing the person she has a hate on for, she chooses Weiss. And instead of using a bow and arrow, you know, that weapon she's really good with, she uses a giant fucking spear and chucks it into Weiss, but her aim is so fucking awful that it doesn't even hit her square in the middle. It's off to the side. Looking at its position, Cinder almost missed. Oh god, it's all so awful. Then everyone just looks on in shock. Look at Mercury here. Yang has turned her back to him. Now is the time to take her out, but he's too busy looking at it too. Why? Why do you care? Take advantage of the obvious opening, you cabbage. Who wrote this cavalcade of nonsense? Who thought any of this made the tiniest bit of sense? And all of this just to unlock Jean's semblance, which heals Weiss, throwing logic under the bus all to emotionally manipulate the audience. Just wow. And then there's Hazel, whose entire motivation for joining Salem is because his sister died on a mission she chose to go on. So you joined the evil demigod bent on ruling the world with an iron fist because people were doing their jobs. It makes sense if you're an idiot. Cinder arrives at the vault, and instead of letting a horrible voice actor open it, she uses her grim arm to kill her. I get she wants her powers, but Jesus Christ, woman, you could have at least gotten the egg of the king out of the deal if things went tits up. But horrible voice actor didn't even bother putting up her aura, even though she and Raven both know they can't trust Cinder, so both sides are idiots. And once again, we do all this stupid just to reveal that Raven is the spring, not Avatar. However, I will admit they did a good job at fooling the audience here. This is a minor subversion done right, because if you go back and watch certain scenes with this new information, certain actions seem to make a bit more sense. Unfortunately, Blake arrives at Haven with an army of furries, and sweet Arceus, this is easily not just the worst sequence of the season, but probably one of the worst in the entire show. Adam goes to blow up the school, but Diversity Hire apparently disarmed every bomb. How long have they been there? How fast is Diversity Hire? But none of that compares to Adam missing his swing and getting one-shotted by Blake. Beating Adam was that easy. A couple of gay speeches and a single blow was all it took to take down not only Adam, but the White Fang. Do you see why this is considered the worst season yet? Yang goes to the entrance of the vault, and Emerald, instead of using her illusions to throw Yang off or her chains with a ludicrously long range to drag her back, lunges at her like some kind of salad-brained toad and misses. I'm not even going to explain why this is convenient bullshit. Raven and Cinder begin to fight, and it's easily the best fight of the season, but even then, it's just average. But at this point, I will take what I can get. So Cinder is defeated in an overly convoluted way that totally isn't a cheap fake-out death.
I'm here for Haven, not you.
Except you are. You've been saying how you need to stop Adam through this whole season. Dumbass. Adam runs off, his character ruined, and a pathetic, almost laughable death waiting for him in the future. You deserved so much better. Yang confronts Raven, and since the two have had absolutely no time to get to know each other or form any kind of relationship, everything said is so incredibly hollow. There is no reason to care about either of them, both together and individually. Raven fucks off, the Moronics get HMO3 Surf, and they all have their big fellowship reuniting moment, but without all the stuff that made that moment great. What a complete dumpster inferno this was. RWBY Volume 5 is almost fascinatingly terrible. It fails on practically every conceivable level. What little good there is doesn't even tip the scales in any significant way. Speaking of the problems, let's get into them, shall we? The plot and world is beyond fucked. Events take place out of order and there isn't much to indicate when they are. This fucks with the pacing tremendously because we're cutting to different places and different times over the course of 2 months. The season has a ticking clock and does fuck all with it. There's no urgency on Blake or Adam's part when the plan is found out. They just sit on their asses until the day of. Speaking of those two, let's talk more about how much faunist racism is complete bullshit. Its very premise, that being based off of Jim Crow era US, makes absolutely no goddamn sense. Faunist features aren't superficial or arbitrary like skin color. They have inherent physical advantages over normal humans. Night vision, flight, production of spider silk, etc. These features combined with human ingenuity would understandably make people nervous and fearful. But no, it's because they have animal features that they're hated apparently. They can own businesses with no real problems, be in charge of one of the big 4 combat schools, attend said combat schools. Are you beginning to see the picture here? Where is the human equivalent to the White Fang? Where are the protests against having faunists attend schools with humans? The ones displaying the most racism are the White Fang. It's so unbelievably stupid. If it were some nebulous aspect of the world, it wouldn't be so bad, but it's a major plot point for several seasons. And the reason why it's so botched is because Miles is white. No, I'm not joking.
I think, to be completely honest, we were like 22 when we started writing RWBY, and when you're young, you want to be like, let's make a show about good things and have good morals, and like, let's touch on this, this, and this, and we were like, I think it could be really interesting and really important to have a show with, there's some segregation, and like, let's talk about racism and minorities and stuff, and I think we were a little too ambitious for a 15-minute, at the time, 5-minute long show, especially with just like 2 white guys writing it.
Which all mixes together to create one gigantic waste of time. The world building is as fucked as ever. By the end of this season, close to a year has passed and yet no real update on CCT repairs. In fact, apparently no one ever predicted the CCT might be destroyed and having some kind of backup. The White Fang exists. Oz knows Salem exists. He didn't have a plan in case this very thing might happen. The world is apparently close to war, but we never really see it. In fact, wouldn't most of the pressure be on Atlas since it was their robots that went rogue? The other kingdoms didn't have anything to do with the fall of Beacon as far as the world is concerned. We still don't know where the fuck Tiffany came from. How is this Super Grim able to remain hidden in Mountain Glen for God knows how long? Or if there are any other Grim like Tiffany out there. It's kind of an important thing to know. Cinder's Grim Arm opens up a lot of questions and potentially rips open some big holes in how the not avatars work. It can bypass how the powers are transferred, even when it is explicitly stated that one needs to die in order for the transfer to happen. Cinder, however, needs the person to be alive in order for the powers to transfer when she uses her arm or that weird Grim in Volume 3. And to the people who think explanations are spoon-feeding information, please note it's important to understand what's going on with your world. Explanations don't have to be a long-winded wiki reading. That straw man has always annoyed me. And apparently a person can have the powers of multiple not avatars. Can it only happen through the Grim Arm? Raven doesn't seem that surprised that her powers were being drained, so I guess it's a possibility. It doesn't contradict the rules of how they work necessarily, but it's not like the rules matter any damn ways. And now apparently Aura is active, even though it was described as passive.
Passively coating the wielder in a protective force field.
This retcon doesn't even really affect anything outside of Sienna and horrible voice actor being killed in the ways they were. Aura still has inconsistent durability, and the effects on weapons it has confuse me. Does it only increase durability or does it also increase damage? How does it affect projectiles? I get melee weapons since you're making direct contact, but what about bullets? Is there a certain range or time limit for the boost? I ask because sometimes characters can obliterate kaiju-sized Grim in concrete, and other times they can't even put a dent in a tree, but maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Power levels are also fucked. As I mentioned before, Weiss forgets half of her abilities just so she can focus mostly on summoning, even though she has far more broken abilities than that. If you think she's too powerful, then either scale the enemies up or don't make your character so broken in the first fucking place. Same goes for RWBY. She never uses her speed once in the entire season, especially in ways we've seen in past seasons. And I'm convinced the reason why they did this was to push this retarded idea of teaching this character things that she should already know since she went to a combat school. Blake just forgets she can Getsuga Tensho. You'd think having an ability that allows you to slice missiles in half would be very helpful in certain situations. And then there's Yang, who, like RWBY, doesn't use her semblance once this season. Granted, there is a weak reason as to why that is, since Tai told her not to rely on it that much, but when you can punch mechs into pieces, set 800-pound bear monsters through several trees, and make nightclubs explode, one would think that might be useful in a fight at some point. There's a difference between not relying on something and using it when necessary. On to the characters. Getting the minor ones out of the way first, Hazel is completely worthless with an idiotic motivation that makes no fucking sense. Emerald and Mercury are largely useless. Kali and Jiro, while not super developed, are still perfectly fine. Same thing with Sun. He is objectively the best character in the show now. Not even Blake can drag him down into being insufferable. Ren and Nora could have been cut out of 90% of the scenes they were in and nothing would really change. Leo's purpose is to really just move the plot forward and get killed, and to be fair, he does that job decently. Crow, unfortunately, is being lumped into this category. He doesn't really do much outside of look for hunters to recruit, and when he finds out they're all dead, it doesn't really affect him that much. And now we come to the characters that were just absolutely atrociously written. Cinderfall. What to say about such a stupid character? She wants power to the point of turning her arm Grim, and we don't know why, and still don't know why. Rather than hurt the person she's made clear she wants to kill, she tries to kill Weiss, because doing it to RWBY wouldn't get Jean to unlock his semblance for some reason. She's teamed up with a tyrannical demigod, and we don't know why, and still don't know why. We had an entire season of her recovering from the Silver Eyes that could have given us some depth, but she's evil for the sake of evil, which would be fine if that was all there was to her. Clearly there's more there, but we have yet to see why she is the way she is. But at least she's dead. Forever. Never to be brought back. Ever. Raven Bronwyn, what a wasted character you are. You left your newly born daughter and loving husband for the life of a bandit, and we don't know why. Does she still love Tai? Did she ever love him? Did she ever love Yang? We'll probably never know. What could have been a character discovering the life of happiness she threw away through her daughter, resulting in her knocking Yang out and taking the black materia, not wanting her daughter to be targeted by Salem and showing that she does indeed love her, instead cries and runs off when Yang tells her she's afraid and never to be seen again. What a complete waste of time. Jean Arc. You could have been so much more. A character whose path had immense potential, not capitalized on for reasons I know not why. It should have been so easy to make Jean more than he turned out to be. As mentioned before, Pyrrha's death has such a small effect on him that his outburst on Cinder felt like it came out of nowhere. His big moment of the season comes at the cost of another character's intelligence. That's the most he contributes. Imagine, if you will, a Jean who is constantly trying to keep himself together, but we see the cracks here and there before he finally breaks. That would have made this moment mean so much more. But no, we can't have anything fucking consistent. Adam Taurus. I won't go too much into detail right now since I have so much anger saved up for next season, but regardless, you deserved so much better. You were made into an idiot, not even trying to change up your plans when they got out. You didn't bother bringing more people to Haven in case something went wrong. You were owned by your ex and turned into a joke. I am so sorry. Diversity hire. What a piece of shit this character was. The plot bends over backwards to try and make her sympathetic, but fails miserably. She's sent to kill Blake's parents, forcing Blake to set her house on fire and severely injured Son last season, all the while fully complacent with all the fucked up shit the White Fang was doing, even participating in it, and her big face turn was caused by what? Blake's puppy dog eyes finally making her realize she's doing bad things? That is beyond shallow. But it doesn't matter what we see. In this story, tell, don't show rules, and we're told how much of a good person she is, so that's all that matters. And the cherry on top of this shit sundae is the fact that she doesn't face any consequences for her actions. Is this the plot beating logic in the face with its giant dick? Or is it because we can't have our token gay get arrested for the crime she committed? I'll let you decide. And finally, we get to our main four. Ruby Rose, the definition of a lame, borderline Ray Palpatine character. She is the same person she was in Volume 1, which baffles me given how she saw two of her friends die and her sister got her arm cut off. Yet she shows no signs of this bothering her. No nightmares, no survivor's guilt, no doubting her abilities, nothing. She gets hand-to-hand training and only uses it once and never again. She's instantly forgiven by Yang when she's pissed at the person she doesn't even know. Forgets she has super speed the entire season and remains the same vanilla character. And I know I've said it in the past that I was fine with Ruby being a stagnant character, but that was before she saw two of her friends being brutally murdered. The most growth she gets this season is that really gay speech she gives to Oscar. Even her turbo autism isn't entertaining anymore. Everything about her is just so fucking bland. Weisschnee. Not a lot to say about her actual character because she's not really a character this season but a prop for other characters. She's used as a vehicle for Yang to vent, and while we do get something out of her, it was primarily all about Yang and Blake. She's nerfed and made into a useless lesbian so that Jean can unlock his semblance. That's pretty much it. Honestly, you could have removed her and not a lot would change. Sure, you'd have to alter a few scenes here and there, but really the plot would stay about the same. Such a shame too, since Weiss is the only tolerable one out of her team now. Blake Belladonna. Possibly the most insufferable character out of her team. A race victim that has suffered no oppression and is the most privileged out of her team. By not only having financial stability, but two loving parents that are still both alive. Hell, her being Jira's daughter rips open massive holes when she was trying to hide her faunus side, since she has the same last name as the former leader of the White Fang that ended up running Furry Island. She is a selfish twat that needs to make everything about her, even when her friend is waking up after getting stabbed.
I am done seeing my friends hurt because of me.
Blake.
Shut up!
She's an abuse victim that slaps the shit out of Sun for the heinous, diabolical act of eavesdropping. A massive hypocrite who condemns the White Fang's actions unless it affects her. Then it's perfectly fine. We never get to see her time in the White Fang and the relationship she had with Adam and Diversity Hire, resulting in everything she says about both of them ringing hollow. Imagine if we never got the Golden Age arc in Berserk. Griffith would just be some guy that wronged Guts in the past, and Guts would be a generic anti-hero. Making a lot of Berserk references. Watch and or read Berserk, it's really good. Diversity Hire takes part in terrorist activities but is instantly forgiven, yet Adam needs to pay for his crimes. Blake herself seeks to set an example for the faunus, but doesn't turn herself in for the illegal acts she took part in, showing that she is willing to pay the price for the hate she helped foster. I guess consequences are saved for Adam. She is a loathsome, self-victimizing, hypocritical cunt waffle. Finally, we have Yang Xiaolong. this one pisses me off the most. I liked Yang for the first 3 seasons quite a bit. She had a fun, upbeat personality, but also had some unresolved personal issues that was ripe with potential. Unfortunately, not only was it thrown away, it was nuked from fucking orbit. Her entire motivation was finding answers from her mom, to get some kind of closure or understanding from Raven. But fuck that shit, I guess. She just wants to get back to her sister when she's offered 2 opportunities to get all the answers she needs. And since she's pretty much done with Raven by the end of the season, all that's left is her PTSD, which has been horribly handled, by the way. They just forget about it when the fight at Haven starts. She has nothing now. She's also a massive hypocrite now. Raven, a woman she doesn't even know, gets put on roast for leaving her. Blake, a person she's known for less than a year, gets put on roast for leaving her. But Ruby, her sister she's known and loved for years, gets instantly forgiven. She asks for no more lies and half-truths and tries to take the moral high ground several times, but has yet to try and take any responsibility for destroying Junior's nightclub and physically assaulting him and his staff. I have no sympathy for a self-centered bitch who complains about being alone when she is very clearly capable of making friends and has a sister and father that love her. What was once my favorite of the main 4 is now one I despise. Great work, guys! At the end of the day, RWBY Volume 5 is one of the worst seasons of a show I have ever seen. Nothing of any significance worked here, and it was the final nail in the coffin for several characters. However, despite how terrible it is, I don't hate it. It frustrates me and makes me hate certain characters, but as a whole, I don't hate it. That spot is reserved for Volume 6.